get some bad audio there. Oh, wrong pipe.
What happened?
I had a little bourbon go down the wrong pipe. Burns a little more than water.
Damn, you got me scared.
No, I'm good. Got your note cards. I like it.
Yeah, I need to. I was giving some
hoping
real
you
bad
had-
intros.
I was hoping you'd have note cards.
I was giving some real bad intros, and I go back and listen to them. I'm like, man, because you know me, I'm so into it just being a natural convo that I wanted to freestyle it, but there needs to be a little bit of structure, you know. At
For
least
sure.
giving someone an intro and here and there, but some of it can be freestyle, but you know, some of it just sounds ridiculous.
No, I agree. It's a format.
Is your phone off?
It's on silent.
All right.
You want to
No,
turn it
that'll
off?
work. No, it's cool. I just put mine on airplane mode. Good to go?
Yeah, man.
All right, let's go. Welcome back to the show, everyone, here at the Awakened Avoidant with myself and Mr. Andrew Foresto. So today is episode 22, I believe. So if you're just joining us, thank you. If you've been here from the beginning, thank you very much. We bring you today another deposit on the journey towards generational health. So today's guest is a friend of mine, a childhood friend of mine. He's a husband, he's a father, he's a son, he's a brother, and a devout Christian. Mr. Andrew Foresto.
Thanks for having me.
How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, man. Big fan.
Yeah?
Big fan of your work. I mean, you drop them every Wednesday, and I'm usually in the car, ready to rock, and on my way to work, listen to the content. I love it.
Yeah, I appreciate you, man. You've been inspirational for sure and giving me good feedback and the kind of feedback that works for me. You know, like your criticisms are constructive in nature. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that helps because people critique in various ways. You know, some of it is not always helpful, but I listen to all of it, but I prefer your style. You know, I prefer constructive critique rather than someone looking at it and just looking for the worst part of it first. I'm like, it's not really helpful, you know? Like, I know I wasn't hitting every mark, but I appreciate you.
Oh, yeah.
So thank you very much, man. I appreciate you for listening and just everything that you've done.
Absolutely. Well, and speaking of like you and I were talking, you know, before you even started this, and I'm trying to remember what the heck the content was, but essentially, you're doing this because you're talking about life, you're talking about healing, you're talking about positive things, bringing positivity to the world, because God knows there's plenty of negativity, right?
Absolutely.
And you know, there's things that people probably should talk about that don't talk about it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's kind of how when I give you feedback, it's because you are thoughtful in that way, and you're trying to build something, and so. Right, constructive criticism is construction, helps you build. So, yeah. I mean, mostly, I mean, a lot of it's just positive feedback because you know I like a lot of your content. So,
do you do that knowingly, like being critiquing in a constructive fashion? Is that always who you were? Or did you learn to do it, or?
I would say that's probably more natural.
Yeah.
Like that's. Having said that, of course. Improving upon it, understanding how to deliver messages better.
Yeah.
Because receiving criticism is not easy.
No.
For a lot of people, even if it's given in the quote unquote right way. Mm-hmm. You know, I think you and I have talked about this. A lot of people don't like the truth. You know, especially when it comes to if there's something that they could probably benefit from changing in their life, you know?
Yeah.
So, and you know, my job requires that I do that as well. You know, you know, I was an auto mechanic for years. So, when you fix things, you kind of naturally go that way because your whole job is to, well, first of all, in order to fix something, you have to know how it works. You have to know how it's supposed to work in order to even understand that there is a malfunction, right? And I kind of apply that to life as well. We're all malfunctioning, right? Right?
For sure.
Like every single one of us is carrying some kind of trauma, right? Some absolutely worse than others,
Yeah.
of course, right? But everybody's carrying it.
Yeah.
And so we're these malfunctioning beings, right? And we have relationships with other malfunctioning beings, and sometimes that goes like this,
Yeah.
sometimes not, but
Yeah.
it sure as hell to me is worth figuring out.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Isn't that kind of what life's about?
Yeah, that is the point. That is the point of these conversations, to have them publicly and just to be open and honest and to be accountable, in the most extreme fashion. I think, let me speak for myself. I looked at accountability a lot different than I do now. Now, when I hold myself or anyone accountable, it's out of love. And it probably always is, but it doesn't always appear that way based on the delivery mechanism or the person that's receiving it. They could be guarded to begin with, but accountability just simply means that someone cares about you or you care about yourself and want better for them or you. Like,
dude,
that's really all
100%. I mean, I think your most recent episode that you released, I think accountability was the topic.
My scrambled eggs, bro.
No, it was definitely one of the more recent ones, either the last one I've heard or maybe the one before it. And I love what you said there, where if you didn't, you're doing it out of love. Otherwise, it's not worth your time.
Yeah.
It's not worth your time and effort because it can be hard work especially when it comes to a loved one, where they're in a bad spot and they need help. And maybe they don't know they need help, maybe they do. But you say things to them, and if they're defensive, right, they're taking it as, you're judging them. And that's not the case, right? The whole reason you're talking to somebody and telling them something that maybe you see from the third person perspective is because you don't want them to destroy themselves.
Yeah.
If I didn't love you, if I didn't care for you, why would I say anything?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just go on, go fail, go down your path.
Yeah.
Your path to destruction, or you're an airplane in a flat spin. Oh, see you later, good luck. No, that's not love.
Yeah, absolutely not. I think in the end, people will see that when they come to the finish line and they realize, like, man, I was going left when I should have went right. I was zigging when I should have zagged, and no one said anything. No one around me said anything. Did these people not love me? But, some people, it's just hard. And like you said, now we're working on trying to deliver messages where the recipient can receive them as intended.
Yeah.
As we grow.
Well, and, again, like there may be, like you said, you get to the end, no one said anything, no one loved me. That could be true. Could also be, I'm sure there's a lot of people that do want to say something, but are either afraid to, or they don't want to get into conflict. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I don't think anybody likes conflict. I know I sure as hell don't.
Yeah.
Although I do find myself in conflict in conversations, right?
Yeah.
But again, it's worth talking about. And yeah, it can be uncomfortable, but it's worth doing.
Yeah.
Right? Human instinct is to take the easy path.
Yep.
A lot of times the easy path isn't the one worth doing.
No. I used to have this saying that I used for a long time. It was called, because I was like, just pulling stuff from the world and just applying wrong messages to the wrong situations. And I used to call this thing that I did as I walked through life, I'm taking the path of least resistance. Like, I was like an electrical charge. And I thought that was a good thing, but I'm like, that's a ridiculous way to do anything, because it means that I'm circumventing all challenges, everything that's hard, just for the easiest way. And then when you get to the end, like, I'm here, but I didn't develop at all. There was no development because I was always taking the easiest route. Whereas the people that, welcome the challenges, they tend to have more.
Well, think about this too. Personally, looking introspectively, when do you learn the most? You personally,
When it's rough.
when you fail,
Yeah, when it's rough.
right? Like you played football.
Mm-hmm.
You played a lot of sports. I mean, when you made a mistake, do you remember your worst moments better than your best ones?
I do.
Most people remember their worst moments
Yeah.
better because those are the ones where it's like, okay, this is an opportunity for me to build, for me to get better. And I say this to my son when it comes to the school stuff. I will never be upset with you if, let's say, you bring home a bad grade because you didn't know. I will be upset if you didn't try, if you didn't learn from your mistakes. There we're going to have a conversation. But if you just simply didn't know, you shouldn't be punished for not knowing.
Yeah.
You should be punished for not trying to know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And when I say punished,
No, I know what you mean.
I'm
I know.
not like go to your room for a week.
Yeah.
Like
You're not talking about taking
My-
belt to ass.
right. No, absolutely not. No, my son's 14 years old.
Handsome fella too. Good looking
he
guy.
definitely
bro.
doesn't take
he's
after
a,
his
He's a little
dad.
model, man. I saw a picture of him recently after not seeing him for a while. I was like, holy shit. He's a good looking guy.
Yeah, he's a great.
Not that that's surprising, but he's like very, he's a handsome little dude.
He's a great person. That kid. I'm so proud of that. I'm so proud of him. We could go down that path, but actually that kind of brings something that I wanted to ask you, and I wanted to wait to ask you until we were doing this. So, how's your son?
How's my son?
Yeah.
He's great. We just went to the aquarium yesterday, which was amazing. To see kids experience things for the first time because he sees them. We watch a lot of Nat Geo at home because I try to stick to the more positive stuff, like stay away from cartoons and everything.
I think that's a good plan.
I saw the way he responded one time to a cartoon when I turned it off, and it was like the way someone would respond away if you took their drugs away. Like he was freaking out over this thing. I'm like, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that anymore. Whatever's going on with the TV, the lights, the actions, I think it may be a bit much for them at that age, and especially all day. So we try to watch educational stuff only. So either way, we're watching Nat Geo a lot. He sees stingrays. We go to the aquarium, and there's a stingray section there, and he just runs in there, stingray, touching them, all types of. I'm just happy for him, just seeing him enjoy it, live a kid's life, and he's running around screaming and yelling. And I just let him do it, I just let him be a kid. Like, I'm not the type of person to even stop him from doing that. Like, I'm not going to stop him. Like, this only lasts so long, man. Scream and yell, it's exciting. You just seen a stingray in real life after seeing it on TV. I want to scream a little bit too, but I'm a grown man, so I'm not going to. But, do that,
That'd be funny. Maybe you should.
Yeah, but he's great. Before we dip off there, though, I appreciate you asking about that, too. I love when people ask me about my son because it's
I mean, the one of the reasons maybe we'll lead into it, but it's life changing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
yeah, in the most profound way.
Yep.
Yeah, there's no words that can like accurately depict what it does to you.
Exactly.
Like, I don't know any word in the English language, or I'm not articulate enough to say them. Like, I don't have them.
I think it truly is, and people that have that have never had children or can't, it's not a judgment or a criticism, but they've probably heard from people, it's like, oh, it's life changing. That's an abstraction until you experience it.
Yeah.
And you really can't put words to. You can try, but to what it does, how it impacts your life.
Yeah.
It's just. It's amazing.
Yeah, I imagine there is maybe there is in the scientific community, but whatever changes is happening to you on like a biological level, you can't describe that in a moment because before he was born, I was that, and after, I'm this. It's just something different.
So this goes to the marriage thing too, and like we talked about what topics we might talk about, and I don't know what order, if you have an order, because you paused.
Yeah,
so.
we'll get to it.
The first big thing that changes in your life is when you get married. And what you just said is something that always recurred to me is, okay, I'm no longer me. When you get married, you're no longer yourself. Now you are your wife's husband. You're not just you. You're part of something bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally believe that that's the way it should be treated. I think a lot of people, when it comes to marriage, they got in the back of their head that, well, if it gets hard, I'll just quit.
Yeah, there's a back door.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And I would be a hypocrite as a married man to say that I agree with that. Now, there are circumstances, obviously, right?
Yeah, of course.
If a guy is, anyway, yeah, there's certainly
Yeah.
extenuating circumstances where it's like, okay, yeah, divorce is definitely in the cards here.
Yeah, ASAP.
But, there's, I personally, when it comes to marriage, when people take their vows, everyone kind of knows do you take so-and-so, in sickness and in health, for richer or for
The
poorer.
most important, right? In sickness and in health.
Well, I actually think that when people take their vows, will you take this person in sickness, when poor, in bad times? Because that's when the commitment means something.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody sticks it out when it's easy and it's all sunshine and rainbows.
Of course, the path of least resistance.
Yeah, it should be that. That's actually how important that relationship and that commitment is. That's how important that is. Where there really shouldn't be any deal breakers.
I agree.
Now, again, we can go real deep on this because I got very, very strong opinions and feelings on marriage.
I love it. But before we get to that,
Yeah.
let's
Sorry.
go back to no, you're good. Let's go back to the beginning. First off, what are we sipping on here today, bro? What'd you bring in for us to sip? What are we drinking on?
So this is Henry McKenna 10-year bottled in bond. It's anything is bottled in bond is 100 proof. So it's bourbon.
Okay.
And this bourbon won bourbon of the year in like 2017, 2018.
Okay. And for the folks at home, he just cracked us open special for this occasion.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Would you call yourself a connoisseur, or do you specifically like bourbon, or all? What are you into?
I wouldn't call myself a connoisseur. I think that would be awfully presumptuous of me. But I thoroughly enjoy bourbon. I've got more where that came from when it comes to my collection. I've got a multitude of bottles. Patty and I just went to Kentucky last October for our anniversary, and so we toured distilleries, and it's actually a fascinating. It's such an old industry, and I like everything about it. I like the history. I like the process. I like the taste. Right? So I was I've been drinking alcohol since probably before I should have been, right?
Yeah, since
I think most of us,
kids.
since we were kids.
Yeah.
And when I first got married, I was like a beer guy. I liked like Budweiser and then Moosehead. That was like the good stuff for me then. Mm-hmm. And then kind of graduated to the craft beer stuff. And then I was kind of like, all right, what's this bourbon all about? I keep hearing people talk about it. Let me try. And then that was it. Never looked back.
Yeah. It's different than I thought it was going to be, because in your mind you think it's going to be strong,
Mm-hmm.
but the way you got it there on ice and a little bit of water in it,
it's sweet, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a little smoother too.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have the kind of bite that I thought it was going to have, and you made it perfectly.
If I poured that neat without the ice cube and the water, it's called the Kentucky hug.
Okay.
You get that warmth as it goes down.
Yeah. I like it. Not bad. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So let's start at the beginning for you. Childhood. Where does that begin? Where were you born at?
Good place to start. I was born in Norristown, PA. Sacred Heart Hospital? Yeah. Yep. I was born in Norristown, Pennsylvania, and I'm trying to think of where we lived. My parents divorced when I was 2. Which might have something to do with some of my opinions.
Yeah. yeah, absolutely, right?
Yeah, I was 2 years old. So my parents lived together. I think they lived in Lansdale shortly after they got married, and then had my older brother, and then me. And then they divorced when I was 2, and then, my mom, obviously, we lived with my mom. Mm. My dad, he lived separate, and then shortly after that, I'm trying to remember when my mom met my stepdad. I want to say probably right around definitely late 80s. I was probably four-ish when
Once you met?
when they met, and then then they started living together. They were serious, and then eventually they got married. And I'm trying to remember what year that was. Probably around 1990. And then we moved. Once they got married, we moved to North Wales. That the
Is that
house,
where I met you?
the house
Yeah.
on. Yeah, that would be about the time.
Mm.
Because before that, I wasn't in any of the. We wouldn't have been in the same schools.
Mm.
But yeah, so you went to Nap,
Yep.
didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I started at Nap in second grade.
Okay.
And so North Wales, we lived there up until after he died in 2006. And at that point, well, I got married in 2006. So my wife and I moved, I moved out and then was living with my wife in '06. And then,
Great woman, by the way.
yeah, I agree.
Excellent cook.
Oh my gosh. She's a great, she does, I mean, she's amazing. I tell people proudly, I'm not one of these people that, refers to his wife as the old ball and chain,
Yeah.
That's the most solid thing in my life is my marriage. And she's incredible. She's my best friend. She's, I don't even really think we get sick of each other, to be quite honest with you. I think some of our happiest times are when we go away, just her and I together.
Yeah.
And,
She's always been solid.
yeah, for sure. Absolutely. She's a wonderful mother. I mean, amazing. I could tell you all kinds of stories about her, man. I mean, even when she had Andrew, I call her the Terminator. She's a tough woman. Tough.
Yeah, our lives intersect in various different ways. You just mentioned in having Andrew, and we share a few commonalities there. So let me see. You met Patty. You got married in 2006.
Mm-hmm.
I was at your wedding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was at your wedding, and we.
It was a long time ago.
Bachelor party. Yeah, I'm trying to remember because like the weddings blend in.
Oh yeah.
There's so many weddings. Like
yeah.
I couldn't even tell you where it was. I was probably super drunk. Like where was it?
Bluebell Country Club.
Do
is
you
where
remember it?
Yeah.
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 You didn't get lit that night?
I mean, I got lit, but I don't. I tend not to get very blackout, so I don't forget stuff.
Yeah.
It's more so I forget things because of the passage of time, more so.
Yeah.
But we got married at St. Stan's Church in Lansdale, and then the reception was at Bluebell Country Club, and yeah, there was like 200 people there.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And
man.
thanks to my in-laws, by the way,
For
they'll
the
probably
number?
hear this.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had a big party, and it wasn't cheap, but we had a great time.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah.
That day, how, what do you remember most about it?
That's a great question. So, something that's funny about my wedding day, or I should just say internally the way I think about this. When I got married, I was a child.
How old?
I was 22.
Yep, definitely tried.
I was a child. Now, I was a mature child,
Mm-hmm.
but I certainly learned throughout being married,
Mm-hmm.
sorry, how important it actually is.
Yeah.
Like, I take it way more seriously now than I was kind of internally thinking then.
Yeah.
But having said that, what stands out to me, man, it goes by so fast. It's just a normal day that goes by. All this prep for it.
Yeah. And
I mean, we were so close. I mean, Patty and I were, we were a good couple before that. It was the marriage was just like, all right, sealed.
Yeah.
And I just remember a general overall just being happy. It was a great, happy day. I loved all the family that was there, family and friends. Was there like a magic thing that happened when we said our vows? Well, I believe that, yeah, definitely, but not that I noticed.
Yeah.
Not that I consciously was aware of. It was just like, oh yeah, of course I do, right? We wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Like we agreed to do this, and
Your
yeah.
perspective on marriage now, you said it evolved from the beginning of the marriage, but when you got married, did you know, this is for life. There's no
Oh
exit.
yeah. Oh yeah. Yes.
Because like
Yes.
some people go into it and still.
Yeah. No, that was never in my vocabulary.
Yeah.
And in fact, so we got married, Catholic church, right? And when you have a Catholic wedding, you have to go through what's called pre-Cana. And so you meet with a priest prior to your wedding, right? Your wedding day. And you basically, it's kind of like a class. And obviously it's biblically focused, right? Because it's a religious thing. So you basically meet, and then I remember I actually learned something from this. And I'm actually glad that we did that, because that's where you actually start to realize that this is as serious as it should be. This is a serious thing. And when I say serious, I don't mean in a negative context, but it's serious.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Because when it goes wrong, some serious bad things happen.
Yeah.
But
in every sense of the word. Serious.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think we'll get to that, because I've got really strong opinions about that. But in pre-Cana, I remember we both had to take a test. And they ask you all these questions. And I remember one of the questions was about infidelity. And it was, if you found out your partner was unfaithful, how would you respond? I think it was multiple choice. And I think we both put we'll try to make it work, but ultimately would probably leave. And the priest said, you both answered this way. Here's our stance on it. There's no deal breakers. And I was like, he's right. There's no deal breakers. That's the whole point. That's the whole purpose of the promise and the commitment and becoming one with somebody else. There's no deal breakers, right? Again, extenuating circumstances we kind of alluded to earlier, and that really sunk in with me. And I wished at that moment that I could have gone back and changed my answer. That was a key moment, for sure, where I started all right, yeah, this is it. And quite honestly, it didn't scare me. I wasn't, because her and I had been together for a while. We were friends for years before we even hooked up.
Yeah.
For years and years and years we were friends. We hung out all the time. So we knew, I've known her for more than half my life now.
Yeah.
So I had no trepidation. I really didn't. And my wedding day was a happy day. Well, actually, here's something that stands out. My stepdad, as you know, you probably remember my stepdad. Mm-hmm. Well, he had gotten cancer the previous year to our wedding. And he got really bad. We thought he almost died the night before my wedding.
Really?
So that stands out.
Yeah, that's a big one.
So yeah, I literally thought he had to. I think the an ambulance had to come, and I think they had to. I'm trying to remember if an ambulance came or not. All I know is it was really bad, and it was looking like he wasn't going to pull through. Mm-hmm. So he was going to die on my wedding day. That was rough. Yeah. That was really rough the night before. That was rough that morning because he couldn't go to the wedding. So we had to leave him. He was fine in the morning. He was okay. He was, and he obviously was he was apologizing for not being able to. I'm like, I understand.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, that was rough. And then here's another thing that was rough, because we were leaving to go on our honeymoon that night. Or I'm sorry, the following morning. And I'm thinking the whole time, I'll probably go on my honeymoon and come home and he'll be gone. He wasn't. He stuck it out. He died a week after we got back from the honeymoon. I think he waited. That was rough.
Damn.
So there's a contrast there on my wedding day, from really kind of bad stuff in the morning and the night before to a really, really happy day, with maybe a little twinge of guilt because he couldn't be there.
That's life.
It is.
The highs and lows.
Yeah.
Yours just happening, in a moment.
In a condensed moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I've had many of those myself. Obviously extremely low lows. The lows are interesting. Now I view them differently because I made it through them. But when you're in a low, you think it's never going to end. But it's like anything. It's like a graph, up, down, back and forth, ebb and flow. That's just life, and you have to prepare for that. You're gonna get some money, you're gonna lose some money. Like that's just part of the game. That's just what it is. But yeah, they can be hard to get through. But now I think I'd probably embrace it a little bit more, as much as you can, especially that. Like there's no way to embrace someone passing, but you try to look for the bright spots. The moments where you guys shared time together or had a meal together, any of the good stuff. Yeah, I get it. That's a hard one, man.
That was a good question though, because I hadn't really thought about it.
Yeah.
in a,
Yeah, I was wondering
in a
because
while.
I feel bad for even saying that to you because I was at your wedding, but I've been to so many, like, I have zero recollection.
You don't have
I
to
was
feel
probably just, like, dumb drunk and just don't remember any of it at all.
It was fun, man. I mean, yeah, but definitely after, by the time we were, dinner time or later, everybody was, at least all of us, friends and stuff. We were all just. I mean, I should have brought pictures. Had I thought about it, I could show you some funny
I
pictures.
probably still have some and probably some of the souvenirs that you gave and everything. I wanted to ask you this, though. As you spoke about your childhood, you didn't go super in depth into it, but
Oh, I will.
I know some. Oh, yeah, you can, because
Yeah.
I want to know about that, and I wanted to ask you after you finish. You can just pivot into
I gave the
this.
Cliffs Notes just to kind of, because you said what's like the history, where am I from? But yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we could talk about this for a while, of course, but where do you want me to start?
At the beginning.
So, well,
Or what about your childhood had the most impact on you? Let's start there. What experiences do you recall from childhood,
you know what's
or
funny?
what made you who you are today?
I would definitely say that I had a fairly decent childhood.
Mm.
Pretty, if there is such a thing, normal-ish.
Yeah.
I don't. My parents. It's later on in life that I realized the impact that it had on me as I was a child. Them divorcing.
Yeah.
When you're 2 years old, you don't know, you don't understand. You don't. It's just like, oh, it's just the way it is.
Yeah.
You're a child. You just, hey, this is life, right? So you kind of go through it that way.
Yeah. They say
But
divorce is one of the worst things that can happen to a kid on an emotional level because they internalize so much of it and because people don't explain enough of the process to them. So therefore, they just create and make their own. And I'm sure that happened to you. And I'll let you tell it.
yeah, divorce blows a child's world apart.
Yeah.
And I actually get choked up when I talk about it. Yeah, you're taking a child's world and you are absolutely obliterating it.
Yeah.
And so, and it's not to say that, that a kid that comes from a divorced family or whatever can't still have a great life and learn things. It's not what I'm saying, but that is true.
Yeah.
It's funny. One of the earliest memories I have, and I kind of recently thought about this. I think the earliest thing that I remember, like consciously remember, I vaguely remember breaking my leg when I was 2. So there's like moments where I'm like, I remember the cast. But what really stands out to me in my memory, my real first vivid memory, was when my parents were separated. And I'm trying to remember the circumstances, but essentially I think my mom worked nights. I know my dad worked nights because he was like restaurant, but I remember my mom wasn't home and my dad was babysitting my brother and I. And I know this happened around the time I broke my leg because I had a cast on still, I think. Well, so my dad was watching us and my mom was late. And they were already separated at this point. And so my mom was late and he was pissed. He was very, very angry. He was screaming and yelling, and I'm just 2 years old kind of following him around the house like, oh. And I remember he was so angry that he kicked a hole in the kitchen wall next to my high chair. And I loved Cheerios. And I remember standing there, and he kicked it so hard, and the high chair, I guess, moved or whatever, and the Cheerios were falling and bouncing all over the floor. And I remember in that moment looking and going, oh, look, my Cheerios. This innocent kid, right? It's like, hey, look, a Cheerio. And I'm like, those are my Cheerios, just bouncing all over the floor. And it's later on in life that I I realize why I remember that. It's not because my Cheerios hit the floor. It's because that was traumatic. That was, that was something that evidently I remember it for a reason. Mm-hmm. That right there is an example of something that impacts you and you don't realize it does. And that's an instability. And children need stability. Mm-hmm. Children absolutely need a stable home to really flourish, right? And that wasn't stable. And then, of course, we had to sell, my mom and dad had to sell the house, and then we had to move, and, so it's like here you are, this young kid, you're just along for the ride, That's why parenthood is so important. Yeah. But you're just kind of along for the ride. And so that was a vivid memory for me. And I think, honestly, I think what a lot of people do, probably subconsciously, is you bury those things. And that wasn't abuse, he didn't abuse me. It wasn't like he hit me or something. It was just scary. Mm-hmm. It was scary.
Yeah.
2 years old,
Yeah, seeing anger expressed in that fashion.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, my dad's not a violent guy. It's not like that. I don't want to paint the wrong picture, but that happened.
Yeah, just got away from him.
Yeah. And and then everything from there, and it's like, think about it, the whole world changed. Now my mom meets a new guy, my stepdad. And that's a whole other story. We could talk about that, but
did you always have that memory, or is it something that just came to you as you age?
Which, the Cheerios and the high chair and a kick in the wall? Mm-hmm. Always remembered it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But never thought about it much.
Yeah, because there's there's suppression and repression, and the difference between that is we actively choose to suppress some, and repress are the ones that subconsciously just get buried, or I might have said that vice versa. But you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. Either way, the one is without thought, you just subconsciously it gets buried, and at some point as you do work on yourself, maybe you can unlock some of these memories. So I was just wondering if you had that your whole life, but it sounds like you carried it.
Definitely remember it. Yeah. Still to this day. I remember, I think I was wearing blue pajamas. I remember details.
That's interesting, man.
And that was 38 years ago.
Yeah, that's crazy. And the fact that you were 2, my earliest memories, I don't remember 2. I remember 4s, I remember being 4. I remember living at my dad's house. But nothing of that. And there was violence in my home, but I don't recall any. I feel like I have a memory, but I feel like that's just me trying to make sense of some of the things that I know happened, but I don't actually recall seeing anything. I just, just making assumptions to try to fit pieces of the puzzle together. But they say a lot of who we end up being, directly stems from most of the things that happened to us as a child.
Well, I think you said this earlier. If you think about it, and hear me out on this, because it's going to come off sounding kind of shitty, but it's not meant to.
I'll ride with you.
Children are selfish by design. Children are selfish beings, okay? Let me give the example. When a child is born, newborn, okay, they need something, they're screaming. I need something, I, right? This is biology. I'm not, again, it's not a judgment, but they're selfish, okay? Because all they can do is absorb their world, right? And so they don't think, oh, mom and dad are tired. They think, I need something. I'm uncomfortable, I'm hungry, I'm dirty, whatever. You know what I mean? Cry. Well, what happens is, and I forget where I read this, but this is like gold. I think it was Bill Gillum. He was a Christian psychologist. Guy's great books out. Lifetime Guarantee, I think is the name of his ministry. He's got brilliant stuff, drops gems. He's passed now. But anyway, I think this is where I get it from. So I'm trying to give credit where credit's due. But a child, think about it, as they grow up, they internalize everything because of the kind of selfish baseline. And so if a 3-year-old is yelled at or is treated like they're not worth anything, they don't. So listen, let's be honest here. Anybody that treats a child like they're worthless is an asshole, okay? Yeah. And that's probably a nice way to put it.
Yeah, I'll stamp that.
Okay?
Yeah, I'll co-sign that.
But to the child that's treated that way, they don't know that that person is broken and treating them like crap. What they do is they internalize it and they go, well, I'm not worth it. Subconsciously, this is what happens. This is why people are insecure. Because what they wind up doing is, as a child, they receive this damage, they receive this treatment as if they're not worth anything. And they wind up believing it. So they believe the lie their whole lives.
Yeah.
Someone very, very close to me believes this lie still.
Yeah, that's why a lot of us carry limiting beliefs.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of humans.
So, and think about it. If you believe that you're unworthy, that you have no value, then you're going to be constantly trying to prove it and prove it and prove it. And you're not really actually trying to prove it to the world. You're trying to prove it to yourself.
Yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
so backwards.
Yeah, absolutely. Seeking validation. I used to be angry as a child. Well, you know me. Oh, yeah, it's not even going to that. But, like, I don't know. I actually don't know how people saw me, but I do know some people,
I always
even
looked up to
as a
you.
child, I appreciate that, would say, certain people close enough to me that were able to say it would say, like, you're angry, you're this, you're that. And I did not know what they were talking about, because I didn't know. I didn't know because it was just me. Like, I'm like, what do you mean you're angry? Oh, I just lost the game. Punch a hole through the wall. It's just like, it was just normal. It was my normal. So I didn't know until I got older and, start unlocking some doors. And it's like, oh, I was that. Yeah. And certain people could pick up on that. Maybe everyone, just only certain people were telling me that.
I definitely, as I started maturing, growing up and understanding things better, I definitely noticed you being angry. Like, I knew you were carrying something. And I wished I kind of had thought about it years and years ago, and you and I talked about it. Because you and I always talk about stuff.
Yeah.
And we don't talk about, hey, Sean, how's the weather? It's like, hey, man, what's going on inside?
Yeah,
like
you're the first
the
person.
better stuff.
Go ahead.
No, that's it. Go
You're
ahead.
the first person that as I age, that I realized, like, oh, you can have emotional connections with dudes.
Yeah.
Like, you can have deep conversations with dudes that aren't your family. A white guy,
Yeah.
just like same as my brother. You're probably the first person that I was having those level of conversations with, and you just start realizing, like, oh, there's more people out there like that too. It's not just Andrew. It is unique to you and us, and I doubt anyone even knows that we even talk like that,
Yeah, I think maybe our close circle of friends may have witnessed it a few times.
Yeah, possibly. It's just like, I see you and you see me.
For sure, yeah.
Like that.
I see people. I love people. People fascinate me. I absolutely, because I think people are worth it, man.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, and of course I'm influenced by my faith. I believe that every single human being is infinitely valuable, infinitely. And therefore they're worth it.
I agree.
From the secular side of things, I think people don't even need to have a belief in God to even realize that, because they experience it. Whether or not they can explain where it comes from, they can at least experience the fact that, wow, I love at least a person, right? Well, that must mean that they're lovely.
Yeah.
Right?
He said, I love at least a person.
Well,
Okay.
I'm trying to be, I guess I'm sure there's probably
that's good.
sociopaths out there that probably don't love anybody, but
Yeah.
who knows? I don't know. But yeah, man, people are worth it. It's like, why are they worth it? Because they are. Because they're made in God's image. They're valuable.
What were you talking about me before that made me mention anger? What did you say? Because I had a point about anger. Something about internalizing. Oh yeah, angry. I was never angry at people.
I know.
Like outside at people, but I didn't know what it was. I was like, I'm angry at me. Yeah, but I could never, like, I never had issues with people, like, besides for like contention, like conversations, conflict that we have. Mm-hmm. But like, I never got into a fight with anyone. I just don't have any ill will or malice towards people at all, but I was still angry. I could never figure it out for years. It took me forever to finally figure out that it was just internal. I was just mad at whatever I thought I was.
Well, because when you know, and and I don't know your whole story to the granular detail, but I know somewhat of your story. I heard you talking about it, you know, on the podcast, and you you got a you had a parent wound.
Yeah.
I mean, think about
Deep
this.
one.
Deep,
Yeah.
deep.
Deep.
Dude, any parent wound is a deep wound.
Yeah.
Think about this. Child's born. Two most important human beings in their life. The most important female in their life is their mother. The most important male in their life is their father. Period. Now, I understand that some people, they don't have their biological parents for whatever reason, okay? But that relationship is their world.
Yeah.
That is the most, as a man, up until you're married, the most important female in your life is your mother. And then that should change when you get married.
Yeah.
Full stop. Doesn't mean that you neglect your mother, but what it means is that this is the most important female relationship I have now. But to a kid, the mother and the father. And so anything that causes damage from the mother or the father is a deep wound.
Yeah. It's
And it
interesting.
happens early in life.
It's interesting that we still seek this connection with the mother and father, even if you have not met them, like people that are adopted, they still seek the real parents. Like it's just in us, whatever we're wired to seek that, because we were connected at birth and because we come from both of them, something is driving you back home forever for most people.
Yeah.
And you just seek it forever. And it's a void that can't be filled until you realize that it's a void that can't be filled, and then you start working, on yourself. Like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I'm never going to get that, but there's other ways that I can seek fulfillment and be happy without that, because that's never going to happen.
Something else too, if you think about it, because you and I are both parents now, and realizing how important that relationship is and how mistakes can impact your kid because you've been impacted by them.
Yeah.
You're like, I know many, many times, so none of us are perfect, me certainly not. There's things where I make sure, this is the way I do it with my son, is I mess up sometimes, okay? But I let him know. It still may impact him, but at least I talk to him and I say, I was wrong. I shouldn't have behaved this way. I shouldn't have done this. I can't take it back. I can tell you that I was wrong, and sometimes Dad's wrong. And
Powerful.
it's the most. I mean, truth is the most important thing. I mean, I treat my son with trust and with respect, and I show him that I trust him to do certain things, even kind of earlier than what some people might think I should. But I'm very calculating when I do that. But, I do it to show him that I trust him, right? And show him that I respect him. Of course, I want that respect in return, right? It's a two-way street, right? But yeah, man, like it's important. It's being a spouse and being a parent. It impacts the world.
Yeah, there's
Look at all
nothing more important.
Well, think about all the malfunction, right? We talked about.
Yeah, it comes from the home.
That's a starting point.
Yeah.
That's a starting point.
That's my point of this, and what I do is just to, start my radius and send some waves out, ripple out. That's all you can do. Anything larger than that, the scale, the magnitude of problems in this world is just too large,
for sure.
For me, for most people. And I feel like my resources are best spent working right at home.
100%.
So that's what I do.
Well, think about it too, right? A lot of people, me included, we like to complain about what's going on out in the world, and it's like, well, if you're going to do that, what's going on in your world?
Yeah.
Is your world working right? Because if you're out here, if you're bitching about what's going on over there, and your world ain't right at home, maybe you should start there, and maybe that will get better.
Yeah, and it's more than likely.
I know I'm oversimplifying.
No, it's perfect. It's more than likely a projection, and people running away from accountability. It's easy, taking the path of least resistance. Let me worry about what's going on out there rather than worry about what's going on right here, because here is the hardest to fix. Out there, I can all day and nothing's going to happen. You're not changing anything. You're wasting your time.
Yeah,
A lot of it.
you're right.
I wanted to ask you also, your childhood as it was, you said it wasn't perfect, but you had a good childhood, and I know some of it, a bit of it, but I wanted to ask you, how did your childhood impact how you engage and interact with your son and raise your son, or the values and core systems of belief, everything? That stemmed directly from your childhood experiences.
It's a good question. So, trying to think of how I connect the dots here from my childhood. So, there's things that, as an adult now, as a father, that I don't agree with some of the things my parents did and said.
Yeah.
So, those, of course, are cautionary tales for me. Again, in the moment, right, I'm not trying to paint this bad picture of my parents. I'm really not. But there were things that my mom would say, and my mom was, she's the backbone because of the divorce. We clung to my mom, and my mom did primarily most of the raising of us. We would see my dad on weekends. It was, way less frequent than we were, because we lived with my mom.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot of good things from my mom, obviously, and of course I learned some things that that I disagree with now as a parent. But I think every kid could probably say that about their parents.
Yeah, sure.
So that's, again, not a dig. But my mom, her kids were everything. Her kids were her world. And so that showed. And my mom did everything for us, you know what I mean? As a divorced, single mother for a while, and then finally remarried my stepdad. And that adds another wrinkle to the whole story, because he became the man of the house. And he was an intimidating guy. He was, military, and he had a big voice, and he was what you would probably call your prototypical man, like what you'd expect. Kind of quiet, like you're a little afraid. Like, we were afraid of him. And he never, growing up, finally I got older and understood him better, like he was actually kind of a big softy, but he was a tough guy. So I learned something from that. I learned there was things about the way he was that I actually do like. That, he was a presence. I think that's important in a home. Like he was, like, we felt safe.
Yeah.
Even I didn't have any reason not to, but you just get that sense where there's an alpha male here.
That's very important.
It is very important.
Yeah, that's very important, because I did not have that, and I think that is the reason why I was the way I was also, because it's just me,
So you had to become the alpha before you were really ready.
Yeah, for sure. Because just me. Yeah, it's just me and my brother. So
so that was absolutely something that I picked up on. There were things that I didn't like that he did, but yeah, he was solid. I mean, I miss him terribly. And the crazy thing is, we didn't have the best relationship because we were always afraid of him, and he was the rule maker.
Yeah.
And so it was like, oh, this asshole won't let us do this, or, oh, if we do this, he'll kill us, or, just that kind of stupid kid thing. Because, when you're a kid, all you want to do is get into do stupid shit.
Yeah.
Like, I want to hang out with the boys and drink beer, like, just do stupid.
Yeah.
If I could go back.
I remember you guys talking about him a lot, and because this is what I know about me. Because I did not have a father, I had zero respect for men and no fear either. Because I was never around anyone. I didn't have that, so it's like I was disrespectful for sure, because I didn't even know to respect a man. I didn't know what they did or brought to the table, so like around girlfriends, and I was disrespectful. I had no respect for it. It's bad. And when I would see him, I didn't get it, like the fear part of it. Because I just didn't have that thing, so I never got it. But how do you feel about that approach now, the kind of intimidating, maybe using a little bit of fear to...
So you're saying, like, as a father myself?
Yeah.
Well, I want to clarify, because I don't believe I don't. It's the way he wasn't. I don't believe it was a conscious thing that he was doing.
That's just who he was.
I think it was just like that. That's the vibe he gave off.
Yeah, I got you.
You know what I mean?
I
Like
got you, I
he
got you.
just he was loud. He was stubborn. So back to your question, I from a parent standpoint, the way I father my son. I mean, yeah, I'll raise my voice at him if I have to. He needs to understand. Listen, there's very few times if I'm raising my voice to him, it's because he's being disrespectful, and I told him that. In fact, I raised my voice to him a couple of weeks ago, maybe a week or two ago, right before he went to school. Why? Well, because he was talking back to my wife, and this is actually something that I say all the time. As a father, and you have a son, or any kid, right, daughter, son, whatever, they're disrespecting their mother, that's your wife. This is something I'm very clear with him, and he knows this. You don't talk to my wife that way. I don't say you don't talk to your mother that way. I say you don't talk to my wife that way.
Making a distinction.
I make the distinction. Because she came first, buddy. Without her, there ain't you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for
so
sure.
you don't treat her that way.
Yeah.
And so I can be rigid and stubborn and kind of like that, but on the flip side of that, I also trust that kid, and I'll tell him. If he asks me a question, I'll give him the answer.
Yeah.
Give him the honest to God answer. So I think there's value in that. I think children, I don't care if it's a son or a daughter, they need to see that dynamic between a mother and a father, and how a man should treat a woman and how a woman should treat a man.
Yeah.
And that's why the marriage is the most important thing. So I kind of went off the rails there about your question, but
I agree.
I don't think that our objective as a father should be to intimidate our child. I certainly don't behave that way.
Yeah.
Or if I do, it's a mistake. So if he ever sees this or listens,
Yeah.
That's not my intent.
Yeah.
My intent is not to intimidate you.
Yeah.
My intent is to prepare you for life and adulthood.
Yeah.
That's my intent.
I think through the way you communicate without knowing how your son receives messages, I imagine he receives them as intended. Just because of the way you communicate, like you're thoughtful about how you do it and how you word things and your delivery. So, 9 times out of 10, it's probably going to land as intended. And if it doesn't, you probably know based on his reaction to it. And do you have to go back and maybe reiterate a point or clean up a message? Yeah, I'm sure.
Oh
You
yeah,
have to.
absolutely.
Yeah.
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 I certainly don't. I don't. I don't have the market cornered on perfection.
Yeah. That's interesting. I'm trying to find my way through that. You asked me about my son earlier. Because I was one way, just anger and aggression and all football and smash and break, I just went left, like I'm like a Buddha now. Honestly, whatever, I'm just trying to find the middle, because I was so far right and now I'm all the way left, and now I just need to find the center, because now it's just like, I don't care about anything, leave me alone. I want no violence, no trouble. I don't want this, I don't want that. I just don't want to bring that out of me. So I don't raise my voice. I don't want to yell. I don't want to do anything, but I know at some point I'm going to have to find, some sort of mechanism to deliver a stern message.
Well, there's a lot of that is subconscious anyway. Like, even though you're consciously thinking about how you're going to respond to your son, you already give off an energy. You already just the inflection in your voice, just your presence alone as a man in the house, your son is going to absorb, regardless. It's just natural. It's like it's anything. If you were in this room by yourself right now and I wasn't here, would you feel different? Probably.
Think so?
Well, what I mean by feel different is like you're going to be, or you already recognize that you're now alone in a room. A person being present changes things. Now your thought processes change, right?
Yeah.
You as the man in the house present for your son is going to have an impact.
Yeah.
And you're a serious person. And I don't mean that in a bad way, and I don't mean that you're not a fun person.
Yeah.
People, I think, conflict.
Yeah.
They think like, oh, if you're serious, you don't know how to have fun. Like, no, he could have a blast and be serious. You're a serious person. That just comes off naturally.
Yeah.
Your son's going to pick up on that.
Yeah.
That you're a serious person and you're a thoughtful person. And you help him and you're trying to encourage him. Listen, he's too. You're going to get to that point where he's going to, dude, it's human nature. He's going to act like a child at some point. When he starts communicating or when he gets to those teenage years, he's going to test you.
Yeah.
Just because that's what they naturally do. It's like, all right, well, where's the boundary?
Yeah, that's interesting. And that does happen. And that is a matter of perspective because I don't really view anything that he does, at least now, and then it might be that, but I don't, like, I'm not in an adversarial kind of way. Like, I just don't view anything that he does that I don't like as a test of me. Because I feel like if I view it that way, then I'm going to confront it that way, you know? He's just trying to figure out the world, and I just happen to be in the way of that, you know? So
you're not in the way. You're not in the way.
Well, if he does something that I don't necessarily like and I'm trying to divert him to go that way, then, you know, I'm in his way.
Well, case in point, don't touch the stove, it's hot.
Yeah.
Well, what the hell does hot mean to a kid unless he knows what hot means? Don't touch the stove, it's hot. Well, if you see your son approaching the stove that's on, you're probably going to do something to stop him.
Yeah.
Or you could let him burn himself. He might learn more if he burns himself.
Yeah.
But again, there's going to be things a little bit bigger than that where, I mean, listen, I'll put it to you this way. If you live your whole life and your son never does or says or wants to do anything that where you're like, oh, that's going to hurt him, then congratulations.
Yeah.
But think about it, man. We started this conversation off about saying things to people because we care. Well, your son he's going to have to learn things. And there's going to be times where you're going to have to say and do things that he may not like, but you know they're the good things.
Yeah.
Because you care.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And again, it's not adversarial. It's because you care.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
You know, I don't know if that made any sense.
No, it absolutely does. You know, it's just different perspective on that piece and, you know, right or wrong. I just don't personally, I just can't view it as him testing me. You know what I mean? Like, even though that's just a lingo for a scenario that we're describing, I can't see it that way because that makes it about me, you know? When in essence, it's not about me.
I see what you're saying now. When I said that he's going to test you, he's not testing you. I think the way at least I internalize it is it's a test for yourself to see how you're going to respond to this thing. His intention is not to test.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
That's the way I implied it. It wasn't like my son's like, oh, I'm going to say this and see what dad does. It's not that way. It's more like, oh, he's doing this thing. Let's see how I do. Let's see how I respond to this. That's the test is internal. Okay. It's like, and then I pass, fail. Okay. You know what I'm saying? Like I've been tested by him and failed. Yeah. Right. And those are those moments where I'd be like, I handled that wrong, and make it right. Yeah. And there's other times where I'm like, I nailed that one. You know, it's like, dude.
It does feel good, right? When you do it and you know that you're, you know, firing on all cylinders.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it feels good, and you know what? It feels. I try not to pat myself on the back. It's more of it feels good because that's going to help him. That's going to help that kid become a good adult.
Why not, though? Why not give yourself a pat on the back?
Well, I should say the intent for feeling good is more of. I get more enjoyment from him gaining something and becoming stronger than just for the sake of patting myself on the back. Again, it's not bad to say, all right, yeah, I did a good job there. Like, but I'm not going to live there. Yeah. I'm not going to be like, oh, I did a good job there. They're from the best, and I can't make mistakes. It's like, no, it's like that good moment. All right, nice work. Move along. Next one.
Yeah, absolutely. Any day I get up and do all the things that I feel like need doing as far as meeting his needs, I feel great about the shit. You know.
You should, man.
I feel amazing about the shit, especially because it's hard. You know, as we get older, you know, I got a young child, and your battery gets drained. You're trying to work out, do this, do that, do all these things, and to make sure
you can
that
tell
I
work out, right?
To make sure that I'm still giving 100%, it just feels good. Or going on a walk with him and putting my phone away, like small things like that. They feel that feels the most amazing to me. Knowing, like you said, presence, being present. Because, like you said again, you can feel it. Like sometimes when I'm around him and I'm using my phone, I'm like, there's a disconnection here.
Oh, it's one of the.
Like
It's
I can feel it.
one of my pet peeves now in this world we live in. It's like, will you throw your GD phone? Just we have dinner, and it's like, and again, I'm not totally innocent of this either.
Me either.
But you know, when I take my phone out, it's when like everybody else is already doing it. I'm like, hey, good talk.
Yeah.
You know, and it's
yeah.
like, all right, like I'd much rather, hey, you want to sit and talk, like as opposed to everybody staring at a screen.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to do a phone in the baskets thing at home, for certain hours, just to make sure we're all,
That's a great idea.
we're all
That's a
here
great
and
idea.
connected. Because I really can feel it. I know it when I'm walking around, I'm moving, and it's hard to describe. I just feel like I'm not fully present as I am when I put the phone away and I'm walking and I'm feeling the nature and the birds chirping. I'm looking at him and watching him enjoy it. That's when you're present. The other thing, you're not. No matter what you say to yourself, you're not.
You're not. You
fully
can't-
present. Yeah, you're not.
You ever heard this?
You're just not.
You know why you're not fully present is because you can't focus on two things at one time. It's impossible.
Yeah, 100%.
And have you ever heard that test where it's like, all right, just think of something right now. No, just think of something random. Ready? Tell me when you got it. All right, pink elephants. Pink elephants walking, pink elephants. Are you thinking about pink elephants now?
I actually am.
Right, you're not thinking about the thing. You can't think about two things at one time.
Yeah.
Right? It's
yeah.
like
yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if you're like looking at the phone, you're taking that in.
Yeah.
You can't be taking this in.
Yeah, exactly. There's
Right?
few moments that you're reading that, you're doing that. You're not doing that. Yeah, exactly. It's that part. And I can feel it, and I don't like it.
You ever heard the
At
saying, kids spell love Time?
I have heard that saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or I should say it's a good saying.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I believe that. I believe that to be true for sure.
and I think earlier when I asked you about, how's your son, it's like back to the life-changing thing. And you said how happy you are about when I do the right things and I put the phone away and I experience this world with my son as he's like absorbing all this stuff. Like only you as his father can experience that. It's just like it totally changes everything. And then it changes also the way, if you think about this, I said this earlier. When you get married, you're no longer yourself. You're your wife's husband. When you become a father, you're no longer yourself. Now you're a husband. Now you're that child's father. So what you do to yourself impacts that kid immensely.
Yeah.
So it changes. It just changes everything. For the better, absolutely, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I can't think of a single. Yeah, it has enhanced my life experiences exponentially. I can't say I wasn't living, but you know what I'm saying? It almost feels like I was doing something different than living now.
The way I look at it, I know exactly what you're saying. I know exactly what you're saying because it's almost as if, all right, you're a book. All right, so it's the book of Sean, right, or the book of Drew.
I like that.
Right, we're going. It's like, here's our book, going through life, right? And then you get to that child, and then you get to that parenthood, and it's a whole new chapter. Same life, same book, totally different chapter. And you didn't know anything about any of this in those previous pages because you weren't there yet. And then you get there, it's like a new chapter of your life.
Yeah, and right there on that page, that's where life starts getting good.
Oh.
That parenthood. When you hit that, that's when the explosions happen and the fireworks and the story really starts getting.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge.
We both went through some trials on our way towards fatherhood. Are you able to speak upon your journey towards it at all?
Specifically, yes, okay, yeah. And I know what you're getting at. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I told you, whatever you want to know, man.
Yeah, just making sure, because it's private.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's common now too. So we had fertility issues,
and we share that in common.
Yes, and so Man, yeah, tough times. Very. I'll tell you what. We talked about that better or worse, richer or poorer stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That was a tough time, and it wasn't. We got stronger through that.
Mm-hmm.
Patty and I, we got really, really strong. But so yeah, I'll give you the rundown. Um,
As much as you feel comfortable with,
I'm,
obviously.
I'm an open book, man. So yeah, so my wife has a very common condition, like a lot of people do, where it's tough for her to get pregnant. Um, and we actually didn't even know that she had that because we had no issues with Andrew.
Mm-hmm.
So we were married, what, a couple years? I guess, in hindsight, probably should have figured because we got married in '06. Yeah, and Andrew was born in '09. So Andrew was born, he was born a month early, okay? But no real complications other than that he was early, so he was tiny.
Mm-hmm.
And
Do you remember? Do you recall what he weighed?
5'6", 5 pounds 6 ounces.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was 18 inches. No, he's less than that. He was tiny. He was a little runt. 5 pounds 6 ounces, and he had a little old man face.
Mm.
Yeah. But I didn't notice it until after the fact, because man, when you see your kid, it's like, oh my God, it's like the whole world changes. So yeah, so back to the other stuff. Didn't really know he had issues until it's like we wanted to have more kids, and we were trying, and then finally Patty went to the doctor and basically figured it out. And then it came down to, okay, do we, what are the next steps? How do we figure this out? And so she has PCOS, right? So it's basically hard for her ovum to get fertilized.
Okay.
So basically we went and we did, the fertility stuff, the IUI, intrauterine, whatever, I forget what the acronym stands for, but essentially it's like, all right, we got to mechanically help this thing from happening. I got to go over here and,
Yeah.
go in a cup, and then
Yeah.
you get it.
The lonely HJ.
Yeah, exactly. So we went through that, and that was a challenge. Yeah, well, it wasn't a challenge like doing it. It was more of a challenge for her, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's like, okay. But it didn't, it took a while. She's like, all right, we're doing, like, she would go every week, and it was hell on her. It was hell on her.
Mm-hmm.
And what, this is the part that really, as a husband, really frustrated me, is that she blamed herself. It's like you chose this or something. Like,
Yeah.
you have a biological issue, and you blame yourself, and you didn't. It's not like you meant to do this or so. There's no blame. This just sucks.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, so finally, she got pregnant, and this was rough. Yeah, she got pregnant, and we were like, yes, all right, yeah. And then I think we were at week. Man, I'm trying to remember this because we lost 2 kids. So,
I'm sorry to hear that, bro.
no, thanks.
That's
Hey,
rough.
I'm not in control, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. I think we realized we had issues. I think at like the 16-week mark or something like that. Like the development wasn't right on like the ultrasound. And then eventually that first kid died in the womb, I think at 24 weeks.
Mm.
Ripped my wife's heart out. That was hard for her. Obviously harder for her than it was for me. It was hard for me, but the hardest part for me was seeing what it was doing to her.
Mm.
And of course the fact that, lost a kid.
Yeah. Powerless.
Yeah, you can't do anything about it. But the faith helps there because, well, I know where that kid is.
Yeah.
Sitting on Jesus' lap.
I love that for you, man. That's the thing
Yeah.
that I love about faith. I don't know where I'm at with it. Let me just be honest. I don't know where I'm at with that, but I'm somewhere in between. I don't quite know because
Yeah, you're agnostic. That's a lot of people are like
somewhere
that.
in between. But I do love that for people that need it, and all people, myself, anyone, and everyone, that there's somewhere that they can go to find comfort.
I want to make something clear too on the faith point. I think a lot of people who are not believers in any deity would claim that, oh well, you know, this person believes because it's convenient for them, or because, you know, oh well, clearly this person's hurting, so they got to go somewhere to find relief. No, I actually believe all that stuff's true. Like, I actually believe that Jesus was resurrected, and like, that sounds crazy to a lot of people, but I think that there's rationality behind it. Anyway, that's a whole, that we could talk about that for probably like 12 hours. But I actually believe, I actually believe it.
Yeah.
And I don't blindly believe it. And so it is very helpful for me that way because, well, because I believe it, I act as if it's true. And so, but even so, even like back to what you said, like, yeah, clearly there's people that have faith and it helps them, which is great, which is absolutely great. And so, yeah, so that's how I reconcile that, you know. But, you know, kind of back to the story, so that had happened. And then, you know, basically Patty still wanted to continue on trying. We both wanted more kids. And, you know, went through the same process. And then the whole, you know, the IVF thing came up, right, which is where you actually basically fertilize the egg in a petri dish. Her and I were not about that. And again, we could talk about that if you want, but I'm trying to get through the story.
Yeah, that's good.
But I'd be happy to talk about that. So that just wasn't for us. So we did the IUI thing, eventually got pregnant again. And then there, on the second one, I think it was, I'm trying to think of the week mark, but essentially I think we were probably around 6-8 weeks in, and it was evident that something was wrong again. And eventually that child passed, I think, at the 16-week mark. And again, I remember getting the call at work when she went and found out, because she knew something wasn't right. And she was devastated again. And so there's my wife, devastated, heart ripped out twice. Totally, that was hard. It was really hard. What are you going to say? What can you say? What can you say as a husband? What can you, I'm not you. It's your body. It's not mine. I am just as upset as you are, but I'm not feeling it and experience it like you are. I wish I could take it from you, and I can't. I can't take it from you. It's like you're dealing with it, and then blaming herself. And it's like, oh my God, you didn't choose this. You didn't choose it. Sorry, I covered my mouth.
Man, you're good.
That was terrible. It's absolutely terrible. And then, so she's like, kind of gets over it. I want to try again. And that's where I kind of stepped in and I said, listen, you know I have your back on anything. You know, whatever, I'm with you, right? We're a team. I'm with you. I said, but I don't know how many more times I can sit here and watch you have your heart ripped out. Like, I think you need to think about that. And again, I got your back either way, but I can't, this is killing you. It's killing you, right? So eventually we kind of decided that we were going to stop trying that stuff. Obviously we didn't stop the normal natural stuff, right? But yeah, but that was kind of it. And man, I'm blessed. I'm blessed that I got 3 kids. One of them's with me, 2 of them are not. But anyway, that's my story there. But I'd be happy to go into greater detail. Yeah, sure, thanks.
You're a warrior.
Yeah.
You got me. You got us.
Yeah,
that's a lot, man. You know, as it was for you in the moment when this happened to you, there's no words. There's no words for that. I don't even I don't know. I feel like for me, it's almost more respectful to say nothing, because there's nothing, there's nothing you can say. There's nothing you can say. I can't imagine what that would be like.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of times, man, life's hard, man. It's hard. Everybody's going to go through some kind of loss. Every single person you ever meet is going to lose something. It's like, but I mean, yeah, it's hard, but for me, I'm at total peace with it. I'm at total peace with it. I don't know if my wife is, and I can't do it for her, but I'm at peace. I'm 100% at peace with it.
Yeah, I love that for you, man. It's a lot. I met my son very early in the process. I went through we went through IVF as well. So, blastocyst, is that the word?
That's after the cell becomes, I think, 16 parts.
Yeah, that's when I met, that's when I met him. And so for me, there's debate, on when, all of it begins. And for me, that was it,
Yeah, that's like very, I mean, you start at zygote, which is one cell, and then blastocyst is 16, and that's when it embeds in the uterus.
Yeah, and it's me and it's her and it's there. So, for me, that's when it was a person to me.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine losing.
You were that. That's pretty much like that's like very, 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 very early.
Yeah. I don't. Like not many people get the opportunity to meet their child at that stage, and I feel
exactly
to have had that experience.
That's really
amazing.
That's actually. Do you kind of want to explain that? That's kind of cool.
What do you mean?
Like what? So how did you like see them?
Oh, because they have an image of it, same as you would an ultrasound. They somehow, I guess, in the culture, would it be called, in the petri dish, they take an image of it as a blastocyst.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's like just this cell, basically, or a group of cells.
I forget that's very early. That's like,
yeah.
Yeah, most women don't even know they're pregnant at that point.
Yeah. So we knew.
That's,
like
that's cool.
Early, and then it was just one and done. We just got lucky. Like, I keep saying the word like. I hate when I say like over and over.
I haven't noticed you saying it.
It's a problem for me. But so having met him that early is just amazing.
It is.
Yeah, it's nothing short of amazing. I'm not very religious. Like I said, I'm agnostic, somewhere in between. But the only word I can think to describe for that is blessed.
Absolutely.
What other word?
What
other word could you say? Like literally, if you were trying to think of another word, can you think of any other word that's better fitting?
No.
For an experience of that magnitude?
No, it's absolutely blessed. It's not lucky. Like lucky's like, oh, you can go to the roulette table and get lucky.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't that.
Yeah, it's not that, man.
Yeah.
It's blessed. It's absolutely a blessing, especially if you're having issues trying to. You know what I mean? If you're having fertility issues, that's tremendously difficult on a couple.
Yeah.
And it happens to a lot of people. Yeah, blessed.
I think
absolutely.
I don't know what it was like for you as far as your experience, but I think that it would be more helpful if doctors better explain to men and women that it is not their fault. Because I think a lot of people, they just carry that, like I know I definitely carried it initially. I'm like, damn, it's me, and I certainly wouldn't blame her. So, we look to.
Right, it's easier to blame yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just don't recall anyone saying anything about it at all. And it's not like it wouldn't have, solidified my stance on it, but it would have been helpful if someone had presented me with, some facts or some scientific information that lets me know, like, this is more common than not. Then you have to go and dig yourself, like, oh, this happens to a lot. It's happening all around the country.
I think the thing to really, even if it wasn't prevalent, even if it happened to 1% of the population, it's still not their fault. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like this isn't a fault thing. This is a biological thing, and well, I think we could probably have long discussion about that. I mean, there's all kinds of theories on why it's so prevalent right now. I mean, look at the stuff we eat, look at our food chain, all that stuff. I mean, you could go down that rabbit hole, but regardless, it's not as if man, woman, it's not as if either opted for that. Like, how do you? The same goes for like judging somebody on how they look.
Yeah, I was just born this way.
Color of your skin, right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, you just like selected that? It's like, no, that's just you.
Yeah.
It's like
Nobody chose.
that means nothing.
Yeah.
That means nothing in the grand scheme.
Yeah, it's hard when you're in it though to get that off you, man. It hit me hard. Like
I remember talking to you
it
about
got me good, and I didn't know it because I didn't see it coming because I never experienced it. So when I found out, it's like me, you know, that's all I could think of. Was like, really, 'cause, I'm like a dude out here thinking I'm a dude. And
But you are.
yeah,
You
and
still
I
are.
was, yeah, I still am. But at that
still are.
moment,
has
because
nothing to do with your manhood.
I know, but when you think about it, the ability to reproduce is what makes a male in this family to be able to do that. And when you take that away from you, you feel like you're losing a piece of what makes you a man. I felt that way in that moment.
And absolutely, you could see how a woman would feel that way because, I mean, I personally, so I have I revere women. I love women.
Yeah, me too.
Right? Women need to love women more because they have a superpower that men don't have. They can grow a human being inside their body and nourish it. Yeah. It's a superpower. They're built with it. It's amazing. Yeah. And then when that thing doesn't work right, they feel like, oh, it's like my kryptonite, right?
Yeah.
But again, it's like, it's difficult, but you can't blame yourself.
Yeah.
It's just, where does that get you? Where does that lead you? Mm-hmm. Down the path of destruction and like guilt?
It's impossible.
And that is not justified guilt. Mm-hmm. It's unjustified.
Yeah.
So therefore, don't feel it.
Mm-hmm. You shake it eventually, but initially, there's no way around it. It's going to hit you like a ton of bricks. It's a knockout punch. You're like, damn, especially if you have this, I don't want to say grandiose, but this perception of yourself as a man's man or a woman's. Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then you're like, wait, I'm not.
That's what they call horses, right?
Yeah,
Studs.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not that. So, yeah, that was definitely a challenge. But, our lives, I wanted you to share that. I appreciate you for sharing that because our lives intersect at that juncture. And that's a hard
absolutely.
one.
I know.
Yeah,
appreciate the question. And, man, maybe I don't know. Maybe somebody listening, maybe it helps somebody. I don't know. I'm not. It's just my experience, and that's how I kind of dealt with it and went through it.
Yeah. So you mentioned your faith a lot. I feel like here's where we dig in here.
Be happy to.
I think it's a good representation of you, and I have many questions about that myself, just outside of the podcast, because growing up, I didn't know you to be very religious. I don't know if you had it at all in your life. Did you have it at all in your life?
Yeah. So, religious. I don't like that word, and because it's not. I understand what you mean by it.
No, I know.
I'm being pedantic a little bit here.
Time out. Tell me what that word means. What you just said. Pedantic.
Pedantic. Yeah. Dictionary definition. I probably couldn't give it to you, but pedantic means that you're basically parsing the actual word and like the individual precise meaning of everything.
Okay. Oh, I got you. Makes sense.
Yeah, okay. That's my version.
I like that. Thank you.
I hope that's close to what the dictionary says.
That's good enough.
But
it made sense to me.
Yeah. So I was, my mom's and my dad's families were both Catholic, right? So Roman Catholic. And so all of us kids were baptized and, went to church. And when my mom and dad got divorced, they pretty much stopped going to church. But my mom eventually got us, my brother and I, into CCD, which is basically, if you're not going to Catholic school, this is how somebody who doesn't go to Catholic school would earn the sacraments. I personally don't identify myself as a Catholic. I'm a Christian. There's a lot of things in Catholicism that I do agree with. Many, many big important things that I do. There's some things that I don't. Now my wife's whole family is Catholic. Okay, so my son was baptized Catholic. One of the things I disagree with, by the way, is infant baptism. So baptized Catholic, and goes to Catholic school, received communion, confirmation, another thing I disagree with. Not disagree with it on the sense that it's benefiting my son. He's doing great. Again, I'm not trying to. I'm going to piss a lot of Catholics off.
You're good.
But hey, so be it. Yeah. So as far as going to church, we go to a Catholic church, but we don't go. We don't go every week. And I'm more. I'll read the Bible, and I'm not one of these people that I could tell you chapter verse. Some I can. I could point you in some good directions. There's a lot of good stuff. You know what's funny about the Bible? You ever heard somebody say, well, there's no instruction manual for life? Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
I believe it's the Bible.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of...
I can see that. It's answers to many questions.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And
Mm-hmm.
it's still relevant. Yeah. And it's actually not one book. It's 66 books.
Yeah.
Written by 40 different authors.
Yeah,
So
I could see
there's a ton of good stuff in there.
Yeah,
but anyway,
answers all over the place.
Stoicism. So the trying to think, I'd get back on track, kind of where I'm at with the faith thing. Yeah, so I call myself a Christian because I believe everything basically revolving around Christ. That Christ is God come down as man, living life as man, demonstrating for us basically the best way to be, the best way to love, and what's a greater love than giving your life for somebody else? I mean, I can't think of a greater love, especially someone who was innocent and was crucified. And so I stick with the Bible, right? Old, New Testament. That's why I say I'm a Christian, because there's some things that I believe don't really line up, and that's why there's so many different religious sects. Mm-hmm. And I hate this because it divides people, right? It's like you've got the Protestants, you've got the Catholics, and then you've got totally different religions, and you've got, you got the three Abrahamic religions, which is Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, right? Same kind of source material, right? And then you've got, like you mentioned, Buddhism. But there's a lot of if you look at the religions, at least even the polytheistic religions, but if you look at the religions around the world, for some reason, most of them all have a Jesus in them. They all kind of point. They might be coming at it over here, but they all kind of point to the central figure. And so, to me, back to your question, because now I remember, sorry.
No, you're good.
As a kid, no, I wasn't, we didn't go to church a lot, weren't religious. I'll tell you, it was probably the biggest impact on me was one of my buddies I used to work with. My buddy Mike from when I was working at the dealership.
I remember you talking about him before.
There's a Christian for you. There's somebody that really, helped me. Because I would say, if you ask me what my belief was, I always, even from when I was a kid, and this could be because, I grew up and my grandparents were Catholic and all this. I don't quite know, but I always believed that God is real. Always believed. And so I think that's a challenge for some people, because it's maybe some people never believed. How do they come to, or vice versa, right? But I remember praying when I was a child, I don't know, 8, 10, 12 years old. Just if I was scared about something or whatever. in a childish way, that was kind of my faith, but it was what it was.
Yeah, I did too. I was baptized.
Yeah.
Yeah, believe it or not.
So, yeah, now, like, what's it mean? This is why I said earlier that I don't believe in infant baptism, because, so Jesus was baptized. Jesus. You think he needed to be baptized? Right? And he was as an adult, and it's a symbol. Baptism is a symbol. It's not magic. It symbolizes something. Have you ever heard of born again Christians?
Yeah.
You've heard that term, born again.
Yeah.
You know what it means?
No, I don't.
So what it means is, and this is what baptism symbolizes, the old self dies, the new self rises. So the old sinner, the old person is put up on that cross with Christ. And then you come up new, born again, like Christ was resurrected. That's what baptism symbolizes.
Okay.
And if you actually think about it, think about anything.
I didn't know that.
Think about anything you've done wrong, where you're like, oh man, I'm a terrible person. I did this then. How could I ever be forgiven? How could God ever forgive me? How could anybody love me because I did this thing then? Well, hold on a second. That thing's dead. It's gone, dead. This is how forgiveness works. Think of the most horrible shit you could think of. If you go back to the Gospels and you go back to Christ on the cross, there was a criminal, there was a thief next to him on the cross who absolutely deserved to be there. Christ was on the cross because he spoke things that they didn't like. That's all he did, right? And he should die for it. That's what they thought, right? And there's a convicted criminal next to him who was being executed as well. And he had one on one side, he had one on the other, and the one's mocking him. He's like, oh, you're God? Yeah, sure you are. Look at you. Get yourself off the cross. Like poking fun at a guy who's been beaten within inches from his life, lashed, skin ripped off, bones broken. Horrible, horrible way to die. And then hung up there waiting to die. And the other guy on his other side basically says, no, this is the Messiah. And Christ turns to him and said, you will be with me in paradise. Here's a guy on his cross, dying, death, deserved it, forgiven. Why? Because of what the baptism means. The old evil self dead, new, born anew in him, standing. The only way that we can approach God is with his blood, because of his blood. It's the only way we can approach him. It says it right in the Bible that our best works are dirty rags to God. There's only one way there. And Jesus told us, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. He says, die to yourself, pick up your cross, and follow me.
You said something earlier that I connected with and I experienced it. You said that self-sacrifice is the ultimate love.
It's the ultimate form of love.
It is interesting because I experienced that when my son was born. It was the first time that I knew for certain, that I would die for that person.
It's crazy, isn't it? And it's,
willingly.
Willingly.
Yeah, willingly.
Yeah. You will give your life without thought. If someone was right here, it's like, listen, Sean, we got your son, we got you, pick.
Yeah, I'm like, come on, bro, do it. Hurry up.
Yep, do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
What are we waiting for?
Yep.
But that feeling, like, what is that? You know what I mean? Like, what is that?
Well, think about this, right?
How does it happen? Like, what is that?
Here's one of the things. Because we're speaking in the vein of belief and faith and God. Okay. Where do we derive value from? Let me ask you a question, because this is something that I think humans, especially people who don't believe that we're created. First time you saw your son, what did he do to make you love him? Nothing.
Oh.
He didn't do anything. He didn't earn your love. He just existed.
And you don't ever have to.
Right, but you love him. Well, that is a picture of God and us. That is the picture. That is why I say people are infinitely valuable. Your son didn't do anything to earn your love, a love in which you just got done saying you would die for him. Why? Because he's valuable. Full stop. He has infinite value because he exists. And that's how people should be treated. And that's why the world's broken, because we don't treat people that way, as if they have value. We treat them like they're trash.
You're dropping bars, bro. You said he has infinite value because he exists.
Yep. Absolutely.
Shit.
Yeah.
You're dropping bars in here, my man.
I believe that. I believe that. And that's what Christians believe.
I didn't expect to get choked up today.
And I didn't, you know what? Yeah, I like getting choked up.
Yeah.
You know, and again, I'm not saying that a non-Christian can't experience this. I'm just speaking, this is my perspective. This is, you know, this is why I believe what I believe. This is why I live my life the way I do, because I believe that's true. I believe that's true. I'm not making it up. It's not, oh, let me pretend. No, that's the truth.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people experience it and they just can't explain it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's...
Yeah, for sure, for certain. I mean, you know, I've shared stories with you where I've had things that have happened to me that I absolutely cannot explain. But I still, you know, I just don't know, you know? I don't know.
A lot of people say it's like, okay, great. You know, I'm not saying you're saying this, I'm just saying,
Okay.
in general, you know, it's like, all right, well, okay, well, why that one? There's all these religions, why that one? Well, okay, so this is something you got to think about. If you have different standpoints, whatever, different belief system, and they contradict, they both cannot be right at one time. They can either both be wrong, or only one can be right at the same time. And just for me personally, and of course you could probably argue that I'm biased because I was raised Catholic, but I've investigated. It's not just like, oh, I just blindly believe this. Like, I have questions too.
Yeah, you damn sure did some investigation. I know that.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, it's like, okay, I would say to somebody, you know, when it comes to the Bible being true or whatever, or that Jesus actually exists or existed as a human, you know, it's like, did George Washington exist? Oh, you say yeah? Okay, prove it.
Yeah.
You weren't there, like, right? So we use methods and methodology to track what happened in the past, right? And there's lots of literature on it.
Yeah.
You know?
You
Anyway.
believe that there is something that can trace back to, I don't want to say let's say something as strong as definitively prove.
Well, and so here's another thing about proof, right? You hear a lot of times, you know, it's like, okay, prove God exists, right? You have to start at the whole, either there's a creator or there isn't, okay? Prove it, prove it, prove it. And people want it proved in a laboratory as if it's a science experiment. You can't use science like laboratory science to prove existence. All you can do is, or not existence, creation. All you can do is look at it and observe, which is what the scientific method is anyway. It's us trying to come up with a reasonable explanation as to how that works. Yeah. And it's like the more that science is advanced and the more we learn, the more we realize how actually intricately our bodies work on the cellular level, where there's a very clear-cut organization, as if something is working together, as if something designed that thing.
Yeah. And
so looking for it in a scientific world to say, well, prove it doesn't say that's God, right? Okay, well, then that's like, okay, there's a painting on the wall. You and I are looking at the painting, and I say, Sean, can you tell me, using the painting, that there's a painter? Can you prove to me with the paint on the swirls of paint on the pic? Can you prove that proves that there's a painter? No, you just recognize the fact that because the painting is there, there had to have been a painter.
Yeah, because it exists.
Because it, right? So that's like, I don't believe that that's irrational. If I'm walking in a field and I see this like aluminum box, I'm walking in a field, everything else looks just like it's growing, I'm totally outside of civilization, walking through a field, tall grass, trees, right? And I see this like silver box in the middle of the field and it says Macintosh on it, right? And I go, oh wow, I wonder how that grew by accident. Do I come to that conclusion or do I go, that looks like someone designed that and put it there?
I get what you're saying, especially when it comes to humans and our bodies in general. It's like it 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 can't be by accident, or it appears as if there has been some design based on the connection, the connectivity, and
I believe
the
it's,
working series of systems
yeah, I believe it's actually irrational
to think otherwise.
to think that all of that arrangement is completely
By chance.
by, yeah.
Yeah.
I actually, I think that, believe it or not, I believe it requires more faith,
Yeah.
blind faith,
Yeah.
to think that that's like, yeah, it's just kind of, oh, those little machines that are like micro, you need a microscope. Shit, our microscopes can't even see a lot of it.
When you frame it like that, it does make sense. Even the way you just described it, like it is, it would take more belief to believe otherwise. Like
Well,
it does make sense.
yeah,
especially when you know the body a little bit. Like most people know the body, but like the real inner workings of it. Like I had a situation one time where I had something called portal vein thrombosis. It's a blockage of the main vein to your liver, and I didn't even know. I just went to the doctor. My stomach was hurting. I couldn't stand up. They found it on a CT scan, so they were able to took meds, get it done. But just the fact that there's one, portal vein that supplies the blood oxygen to your liver, like, you know what I mean? The design, the human design is so intricate. You know what I mean? There's no design like it.
there is not.
Yeah, there's nothing that
There's
exists like it.
absolutely not. And that's the thing is, if you think about the most complex machine that human beings with intelligence have created,
Yeah,
doesn't hold a candle
yeah,
to what's going on the cellular level on our bodies. I mean, there are like micro machines that take amino acids and move them around, and like it's like a construction site, and it's amazing when you
Yeah.
like when you research this stuff. It's like, wow, this, or like take for example DNA, and then you take the cell, like so every cell has DNA. What is the function of the DNA? The function of the DNA is to instruct the cell what to do. So it's basically instructions for the cell. Well, I beg your pardon, but where did the instructions come from?
Yeah.
You can't have instructions without intelligence.
yeah,
For me, that's why it's rational.
yeah. No, I get it.
And, and again, I'm not trying to convince anybody. That's how I have internally, processed it. That's how
makes
I have
sense
processed it.
because it's so intricate that there had to be some thought behind this design.
There's clearly
You know
some
what I mean?
kind of
Yeah.
intelligence there.
Yeah.
I mean,
No, it makes sense.
yeah.
I couldn't come up with anything to oppose it.
Yeah, and again, I'm not, and that's what I mean. I'm open to just like I think it's a fascinating discussion. I think too many people get really like offended about it. It's like, well, listen, like maybe they just don't understand or don't believe. It's like I'm not here. I'm not saying this judging people. It's just like that's how I believe it's rational,
Yeah.
and that's why. And I mean, I'd be happy to look at, all right, well, what about this? It's like, okay, what about it? Let me look, let me read,
Yeah. I think for a lot of people, as is the case in most situations, if someone goes through the world with this worldview that has shaped who they are, they hold on tight to that belief because anything outside of that may mean that you may have to go back and think about everything that you've ever known or been taught or heard or learned or what you know about yourself. It just questions everything. And who wants to do that? Who wants to really do the work? Not many people.
Yeah.
Some of us are out here trying to do the work.
I think so. And speaking of work, just I guess if you want, I don't know if you're wrapping up the, the faith thing.
What time is it?
It's 2:20, just about.
Okay.
So one of the big things about Christianity specifically is forgiveness. Right? I mean, although we were sinners, right? Christ died for us. That's kind of like in a nutshell. But forgiveness, even on a secular level, in a psychological sense, it's the most liberating thing a person can do is forgive. It's the absolutely most, because again, we mentioned trauma, right? And this is what you're trying to basically bring out is positivity, people dealing with their trauma and healing, okay? You need the forgiveness for that. You have to have the forgiveness. And like that's one of the, and you and I think have talked about this a little bit with the forgiveness is when you, because I certainly am still working with it, working through it. You know, and a lot of it's with parent stuff and forgiveness. And I really learned a ton about myself when I started actually considering what real forgiveness looks like. It's still loving somebody in spite of something that they've done that hurt you. Because being able to forgive and still love them, actually, it's beneficial to yourself. If you're walking around holding resentment, it's the equivalent of pouring poison for somebody who deserves it and drinking it yourself.
Yeah, you're only hurting you.
Yeah, resentment and not forgiving somebody it only hurts yourself.
Yeah, and spite and all those.
Yeah. It doesn't give people a license, but what it does is it's like, listen, everybody's doing something for a reason. You know, this person behaves this way or hurts this person because of this. Okay, and this person, you know what I do, the easiest thing I think when it comes to forgiveness? That person that you're angry with or that you hate or you think you hate. I'm not saying you, I'm saying everybody.
Yeah.
All right, picture them now and then rewind the clock to when they were a little child. And then think about all that happened from then to there.
Yeah.
And go, yeah, that kind of explains. And that helps me not hate, right? We're not told to hate, we're told to love.
Yeah. That's interesting. As I age, I don't really have any of that. I don't
That's
know
good.
where or what. Like, I don't have any, I have no contempt for anyone, no hate. Even people that do me wrong, because I look at it the way you did. And I see people, I could just tell, usually people that are kind of nasty and negative, they're struggling, you know? Because if you weren't, why would you be that way? Being that way is not enjoyable. I've been angry. It's not fun. I wasn't having fun.
Doesn't feel good.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
if you
I
could
do know
be
what you mean.
something else,
Yeah.
you would if you could choose it. So when I see someone, I'm just like, you know, I would say just give grace would be the only thing that I could say. I don't want to use the wrong word and say give them a pass, but just give grace and, you know, my life's good and, you know, I'm going this way, you go that way, but there's some understanding, I guess, because I've been there. You know, I've probably been that person for sure. No, actually not probably. I've definitely been that person.
I think we all have.
Yeah.
You know, to some degree or another. There's a lot of pain out there. A lot of pain in the world.
Yeah.
And let's try to fix it. You know, like that's all we can do is what can we impact, right? We talked about it earlier. It's just our immediate world.
Absolutely.
That's all we got. That's the only thing we really have any. Well, shit, even that we don't have actual control over. The only control we have is over ourselves.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Yeah.
We have a chooser, right?
Mm-hmm.
Choose.
Yeah.
This or that.
Yeah, because I'm at the place where I realize even in spite of all the good efforts and good deeds and everything that I want to do for my family and son, it still can go another way, you know?
Absolutely, that's right. I mean,
it still can go.
Yeah.
It still can zig. So.
Yeah, and how are we going to deal with it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. My man, thank you so much for coming out. I appreciate you. Sorry about the technical difficulties.
It's all good, man.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us here at the Awakened Avoidant with myself and Mr. Andrew Foresto, devout Christian, good man, extraordinary gentleman. Thank you, sir.
Appreciate that, man. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Great time.
We'd like to thank you for tuning in to the Awakened Avoidant. We hope our convo has provided you with insight, inspiration, and healing energy. As you go about your week, let's continue to work together to heal ourselves and our community. Stay safe and continue to spread healing vibes wherever you go. Catch a new episode Wednesday, weekly on all platforms.
Strawberry vinaigrette in my fridge. Made it from scratch, that's just what my life is.